All right, welcome back, everybody. I think we fixed up some of our technical issues. So here's more of the interview I just had with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent here at the Reagan National Economic Forum at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California. Take a listen to what Scott Bessent had to say.
So I think between 5.5, 6 weeks of an incredibly successful military campaign and then Operation Economic Fury, where we have really cut them off, and they are at the end of their tether now financially. I think 40 or 50% of the troops aren't getting paid, police aren't reporting to the station, inflation's probably over 200%, they're having to give out food vouchers, they have turned off the internet. There was an information vacuum, and we'll see. Is the Iranians have engaged as they could. I would point out we did not have regime change, but we changed the regime. The first level leaders decapitated, the second level decapitated, so we're dealing with the third level, and it's very tough, because on one side we have a theocracy with the clerics, on the other side we have a thugocracy with the IRGC, and you've got to convince both sides.
You know, I think kudos to you. You're probably the most significant, most powerful, most successful wartime Treasury Secretary, certainly since World War II. You've closed them down. They are our enemies. In fact, Roger Zakheim reminds me, Reagan Institute did a poll, 80% of Americans believe Iran is an enemy, the United States. Now, we're the other 20%.
I don't know who the other 20 are.
They're all in New York and Connecticut. I'll leave that aside. But what you have done with the economic fury, you basically turned their water off. Maybe you want to say, how long can they go? They're not meeting payrolls, they're not meeting retirement, they're not showing up for work. You've closed down their offshore bank accounts, you've closed down their oil operations, you basically closed the whole place down. It's kind of all over but the shouting, it seems to me.
Well, Treasury, we're doing the financial blockade, and the U.S. Navy, who, you want to talk about a group that hasn't been this active since World War II, it's the Navy.
Yes.
They've done an incredible job. And when I talked to General Kane and the Secretary Hegseth, they said, like, these young people aren't afraid. They want to fight. Like, this is what they signed up for. And some of the precision that where they blockaded the Iranian ports, with virtually or perhaps zero intrusions have been amazing. Karg Island, which is the Iranian oil export facility, is shut down.
You basically turned that off.
The blockade did that. We think they have the lowest amount of oil on the water. Their only client is China. And I would point out that the Iranians made a very big strategic mistake, because everyone said, oh, well, the Iranians attacked the GCC and the infrastructure, and that really makes them invulnerable. That on my side of my duties, they made my job so much easier, because before, many of our great GCC Gulf allies were a little less than transparent about their banking systems. That, oh, no, we don't have any Iranian oil. And 2,200 the shells and missiles and drones here, 500 or 600 there, all of a sudden it's, oh, here, they have at it. So we've frozen Iranian bank accounts.
After they started getting bombed by Iran.
Yes, but it was a big strategic
mistake
failure on the financial side.
And you jumped right in.
And we jumped right in. And they've been very good partners. I believe that we have seized about $1 billion of their crypto. and
just outright seized it.
just outright grab the wallets. Some of them may be like typing in right now and realize they might not have realized that their wallet had been grabbed. And we are working with our allies all over Europe to grab villas and houses and properties. And this is money that's stolen from the Iranian people.
But you've frozen the offshore accounts. I mean, people may not understand that the Revolutionary Guard, they own so many of the businesses. They've been stealing money from the Iranian people for decades and decades and decades.
We think
they're all living high off the hog. Retirement accounts and condominiums, God knows where.
We think they were stealing $400 or $500 million a month, divided between 80 leaders.
Now, that can't last. I mean, they're in a heap of financial trouble. And that is your doing. That is your doing, sir.
Well, it's like Woody Allen said when he talked about the mafia. It's a good margin when you consider they don't pay for paperclips.
Okay, I got it. All right. Well, anyway, congratulations on all that. Second point I wanted to raise, and you talked at some length about it in your prepared remarks, the economy, the industrial economy is booming. Despite gasoline prices and energy prices and the temporary effects of the war. Just some numbers. I mean, with $4.50 gasoline, which I might add is coming down, you're still growing. I mean, nearly 3% consumer growth from the latest numbers year on year. But the most extraordinary thing, and I think this is to your point about the trade reciprocity and the America First and being prepared, non-defense capital goods, business investment is growing over the past 3 months alone at nearly 19% at an annual rate. We haven't seen numbers like that. 10.5% year on year. So that's quite remarkable. Shipments growing at 12.5%. Profits rising 17%. Productivity at almost 3%. Unit labor costs, which is the most basic, in a sense, inflation measure for the entire economy. Unit labor costs last 4 quarters, 1.2%. That's why I can't get too excited about a temporary gasoline pump. I mean, in effect, the trade deficit is narrowing. These one big, beautiful bill and other policies have been succeeding.
It's been fantastic, and much of it is what you all did in Trump. The 1.0 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but through, I see Jason Smith here, that he was working a year in advance to get the one big beautiful bill. That did not spring up. I see French Hill, Jody Arrington, they were all incredible in getting this across the line. I remember I went to Mike Johnson and said, Mike, when do you think you can get this out of the House? And he said, I said, and as one bill. And Larry, I want to give a shout out to you because Dr. Kudlow here said, you must have it as one bill. You cannot bifurcate this because if people start picking and choosing, then it's the end. So Larry insisted on one bill. Then Mike, Speaker Johnson, if we want one bill, how do we do it? Or when can we do it? And he said, I think I could have this out by Memorial Day. I said, hold please. I called up Newt Gingrich and I said, could this ever happen? And he said, it's ambitious. Okay, Mike, let's do it. And then as soon as he did that, they called Leader Thune and said, Speaker Johnson says it's going to come out of the House by Memorial Day. You think we could have a July 4th signing? And, okay. And everybody got it done. But I think it just speaks to the power of what we've done. We're never going to have to talk about a tax cut again because these are permanent. And I just think the power of permanence and certainty and knowing that you're going to be able to, like this full expensing just levels us up against so many other countries.
Business is not a dirty word. Profit's not a dirty word. The reason that consumers have the income to spend at their kitchen tables, even with this temporary gasoline bump, is the success of these policies. And I think the permanence. We've never seen investment rates like this, probably not since the Reagan recovery from the Carter recession 40 some odd years ago. So supply side economics is working and the America First policies are working. So kudos to you for your implementation. Kudos to the president for sticking with it. Kudos to Jason and whoever else is here. I didn't know you were here. Good to see you. No change in policy. The war will end. We will go back to normalcy on energy.
Look, the war will end. We'll get to the other side of this. The economy has been very resilient through all this. Look, for many families, it's not nothing, but it's been less than $200 in extra the gasoline cost. And I don't have it with me, but all the Democrats want to talk about now is beef and gasoline. I've got a sheet that has the 12 supermarket items. Last year was eggs. And eggs are down 90% now. Beef is highly idiosyncratic now because of some cattle disease down in Mexico and the dynamics of the herd, but chicken's down, many vegetables are down. So this groceries are actually down. So we'll see. But I can tell you, the one thing we're not going to do is what the Biden administration did, where they came out and said, it's a vibe session. The American people don't know how they're feeling. That was 21.5% stated CPI inflation. Real wages grew about 17%, so big, awesome purchasing power. But our friend Jason Trennert has something, I think it's called the Everyman Index of the Work. Common Man Index, and that was up 35 or 38%. So that was a 15% decline, 16% decline in real purchasing power, and Americans felt that. And the price levels have gotten elevated. It's tough to bring the price level down, but what we can do is we can generate real wage growth, which I think we're going to get back to as soon as we're on the other side of this Iran conflict.
So you were mentioning in your talk, we are here at this conference celebrating 250th birthday of America and looking ahead for the next couple of 100 years. I can't help but ask you, are we really going to have a $250 bill with Donald Trump's picture on it?
Well,
the whole world is waiting.
So for the 150th, there was a Calvin Coolidge coin.
Oh, God, I love that.
With his image on it. We are going to have the image of President Trump on a coin, and there is a proposed legislation in the House to put President Trump on the $250 bill. As Treasury Secretary, I am only mandated to do two things with the design of the currency. At present, it has to be someone who is not living, and it must say, "In God we trust." And do whatever else I want. Look, I think that if you were the president, just like Calvin Coolidge was for the 150th, if you're the president for the 250th, President Trump should be on there. And for any of you who are want to geek out in monetary theory, there's something called seigniorage. So we print, Treasury prints currency, the Fed distributes it, and we have about 2.6 trillion outstanding, and that's a free loan. So we put currency out there and we don't have to pay any interest on it. So with seigniorage, I think that you get the $250 bill. I think a lot of people are just going to put those away and hold them.
I'm sure it'll be a big
It's a good free loan.
I'm sure the demand for it will be huge. The other side, I mean, we've got a lot of optimism, I think, at this conference, and I know I'm very optimistic. And the theme of going from Reagan through Trump and having you here to speak to the Trump economic policy is very, very important. The other thing I wanted to mention briefly, before I get to the Fed and our new chairman, is the Trump savings accounts, which I think really is a game changer. That is a major, major piece of legislation.
I think that this is the most important government benefit for young people since the GI Bill. And 38% of Americans have no exposure to our great equity market. They don't participate in the innovation, the dynamic U.S. economy, great managements, many the managements who I see here today. And for them, it is just a foreign concept. So with the Trump accounts, any child born during President Trump's term, they get a $1,000 seed investment from Treasury for these, and they're going to go into low-cost index funds, and they will be able to see every day on their phone what the account's doing. Folks with children under 18, families with children under 18 can open a Trump account, and they can put up to $5,000 in there that'll compound tax-free until age 18. At age 18, they roll it into a traditional retirement plan or take it out to start a business for education, down payment on a home. And the other thing we're seeing with these Trump accounts is that we are seeing some of our great philanthropists, Michael and Susan Dell, $6.25 billion to American children.
Remarkable.
As President Trump said, when Michael made the announcement, he said, Michael, 250 million's a lot. 6.25. So, and that is for young people who are from the bottom 80% of the economic zip codes. So it's going to be about $250 for 80% of the American children.
Loan a piece of the rock. They never thought possible. They might even learn a little bit about capitalism and business along the way.
Well, I think we're creating a whole new class of shareholders. And in nutrition, there's this idea of a food desert. You don't have access to good food. I've done a lot of work on financial literacy. I push for it, and I think that there was the idea of a financial desert that if people don't have exposure, many of them. They can't open a Charles Schwab account or an E-Trade or any of the other, Robinhood or any of the others. So this is going to give them an account. Rather than giving a toy for someone's birthday, you cut the price of the toy in half and give the toy, and then put $20 into that account. So you can constantly top it up.
It's worth a lot more than a welfare check. It's worth a lot more every way you look at it.
At Treasury, went up yesterday, to encourage all of you to go, trumpaccounts.gov. We have 5, maybe we might be up to our 6 learning modules, because these are families who have never participated, many of them, have never participated in the stock market before. Look, I was a kid from South Carolina, a small town, and I was growing up, I just knew something bad happened on Wall Street in 1929. Like, that's what I knew about Wall Street. And now, I think they're going to be able to see it on their phone. They'll sit around the dining room table. Their families will add to it. Many states are going to top these up. So we've got 20 states so far that I think are going to add to these. And I do think it is a new kind of philanthropy, because now we have all these foundations. A lot of them do good work, but there's a lot of bureaucracy. They have buildings, they have boards, they have dinners. If you want to give directly to the children of America, just give to the Trump accounts.
So you just had breakfast with our new Fed chairman, Kevin Warsh. How was that?
It was great. It was President Reagan would say it was a new day at the Fed. So we now have the Warsh Fed. The Treasury Secretary, the Fed chair have lunch or breakfast every week. It's a home game and an away game. So I did the away game at the Fed. Their food's much better because they don't have a budget. They print their own money.
Apparently not.
Apparently not. One hears. But it was good. Look, it's the renewal and change is good, and I think we are going to see a new sheriff in town. I think we are. I'm not going to get out ahead of the chairman, but he said he's going to get rid of forward guidance. So I think I would expect.
You approve of that?
100%. 100%. And I also think we're going to get back to basics in terms of accountability, credibility, and what's the purpose of the Fed? Because, Larry, for your career is longer than mine, but for a long time, the Fed just ran in the background. It wasn't, oh, it's Fed day, it's the Fed meeting, cover the press conference, all day event, all these governors out giving speeches and kind of popping off. And I think we are going to see much more focus, much more, a lot more credibility. And at the end of the day, financial markets, it's all about credibility.
I noticed the President said right at the beginning, as soon as Kevin was confirmed, that he's on his own. There's really no pressure to move interest rates in one way or another, that you just have to trust, he's going to trust his Fed chairman. And I just wanted to be sure that the Treasury Secretary echoed those views.
100%. That the President made the decision. I ran the process. President made the decision. I never put the thumb on the scale for Kevin Warsh, who I'd known for 20 years. I think he's an incredible choice. And the President got there for all the right reasons. And the President understands that the more credible you are, the more work the financial markets will do for you.
So no pressure at the moment.
Look, again, everyone, a lot of the publications wanted to be alarmist, and to the extent I had any success in my 35-year Wall Street career, it was usually doing the opposite of what was on the front page. And when I saw over the past couple of weeks, what a terrible time to start up as the Fed chair. I was like, no, it's a great time. Yeah. It's a great time. Interest rates have spiked. Mm-hmm. Inflation has spiked. Mm-hmm. The tough thing would have been to have come in February, and the market was pricing in 2 or 3 rate cuts for the year. Inflation looked like we were going to come back down to target. Growth was high. Much better to come in now. And look, you all can be the judge. I'm not saying whether it's the causation or the correlation, but rates peaked the day before Chair Warsh was sworn in.
And also, tell me if this is, I think I'm noticing during this Iranian war episode, et cetera, with all of the good things that are going on, the dollar is actually improving. And if I'm not mistaken, you yourself have been a strong advocate of maintaining the dollar as a reserve currency. And I know in the first term when I served, the president was always a strong advocate to maintain the dollar as a reserve currency. Has any of that changed?
Nothing's changed. And again, I was in the currency market for 35 years, and I think people have the wrong notion of what a strong dollar means. Strong dollar isn't the price on the screen every second, every minute, every day, every week. What a strong dollar means is that we are doing the right things to set our economy on a good course, that people will want to hold dollars, that they feel safe and secure, and that their money will get back to them, that they will have the real returns. And I think we've done that. Whether it's through trade policy, tax policy, or energy policy, the United States, President Trump, with his policies, has made the United States the best place. Whether you want to be in the liquid markets or to come build your factory, you will have great certainty. You will have on tax, you will have great certainty on energy, and you will have great certainty on our workforce.
So we appreciate all these remarks. The time is short. I've got a TV show to do. You're going to speak with my colleague and dear friend Maria in a little while. I don't think the president has made a decision. I was just looking on my phone. I could be wrong, but I don't think a decision has come out. I just wanted to ask you, there's in all likelihood no ruling out of further military operations, combat operations, kinetic operations, if the Iranians continue to misbehave. There's no ruling of that out, is there?
Everything we have done since the ceasefire began has been defensive. Mm-hmm. And Admiral Cooper, General Kane, Secretary Hegseth have been very clear about that. And again, what's important to realize here is, just as in our government, we have hawks, doves, in between, they have people who want to keep up a quixotic fight, and then they have people who want to settle. So they are also hashing it out. But there are three scenarios. We have the deal. We don't have the deal, but we just maintain the blockade, and we keep squeezing them. And I think every day that goes by, much worse for them. Or we go back to kinetic action, and President Trump, you know it, Larry, I know it, he likes to create the most leverage for himself.
You're going to keep the blockade, financial and economic embargo going.
We'll see. That it'll be anything that's taken off is taken off slowly. There'll be milestones that the Iranian regime would have to meet. And I can tell you, we put more sanctions on yesterday. We sanctioned their two airlines. We've got some other financial targets. There's a lot more that we can do if we have to. And there's some things that we can take off to help the Iranian people.
Secretary Scott Bessent, good friend, thank you for your service. Thank you for your good works for America. We appreciate it very much.
Good. Well, thank you, Larry.